Teeth.
Uh, Hello there, it's Susie Walker here, editor at Psychologies, and I am joined today with the wonderful David Pearl, who is author of this fantastic book, Wanderful, and founder of Street Wisdom. So we're trying to do our lunchtime broadcasts every day at Psychologies to kind of raise the mood of the nation in these weird and wonderful times. And so, David, first of all, thank you for writing this book. My book is full of scribbles and underlining. I love this
Corrections.
book. Oh, I love this book. I absolutely love this book
Thank you.
because it kind of hits me in the heart with a kind of how to read the world in a way that makes me feel sane rather than insane. Tell us a little bit about Street Wisdom and Wanderful. Tell us about what it's all about.
Yeah, I'm delighted to, and thank you for having me on your boat, your virtual boat there. Um, yeah, so Street Wisdom makes sense looking back. I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but essentially over the last, I don't know, 15 years, I've been experimenting with taking, I work a lot with businesses, and I've taken people out of their offices into the street to kind of get out of the whole construct, the business construct. And the street's an amazing place because you don't have an identity there really, and the public own it, and it's full of stimulus. And so I developed a workshop, which we call it a WalkShop. That is a 3-hour experience that we gave away and showed people how to do it. And it's now in 40 plus countries around the world. And having done that for 4 or 5 years, I just was curious to find out more about it. So a great way to learn is write a book. So Wonderful is really the manual that came out of Street Wisdom. And it's all about how to use to awaken your internal navigation system. In a lot of time we're trying to get information or advice or guidance from outside about where we should go. And I think an experience like we're all living through at the moment reminds us that, you know, who knows what the future holds. And you need to, well, it's a good idea to awaken your own sat nav of your soul, as I call it. And that's really what that book's about. It's also about the joy and the power of wandering, which we were never taught at school. We were told, get the story, get the line going straight with that ruler from A to B, and then you'll get a tick and you'll get a job. And of course, the world's become very complex, and actually the ability to let yourself wander and let answers emerge is become quite an important skill. And there's a lot about that in the book, practical stuff about how to do it.
Sure. I mean, the worldwide wander that you do every year at Psychologies, we completely support you. We love what you're doing because it's kind of,
We love Psychologies.
but I mean, we've worked together a lot, David, because I think our audience love the idea of street mindfulness. It's urban mindfulness. So, it's free. You get out there. You can start, as you say, tuning into your environment, sort of, as you say, that kind of inner guidance to check in with your inner guidance rather than constantly be looking to gurus or experts or
Yeah.
external sources to guide you how to lead your life. And that's what I love about Street Wisdom, which is really great. But you've got a new project, which we must talk about, which is bringing Street Wisdom home. And I love this idea, which is instead of doing it on the street, you're actually doing it in your home, which makes you feel calm, grounded, inspired, all these things. So tell us a little bit about that. How did you come up with that idea, and what is it?
So Street Wisdom Comes Home isn't as bonkers as it sounds, because the real purpose of the Street Wisdom Workshop, which is done in the street, is to take that awareness back into the building and take it. The street is a great place to learn stuff, but it's not exclusively there, because the magic, if you call it magic, doesn't happen. It's not about the location, it's about what's happening here. And so actually, with a little bit of tweaking, it's very possible to do lots of the inspiration boosting ideas that we're used to doing in the street in your own home. You just don't have to go so far. And so over the last 2 months, is it? I don't know, Earth months, whatever. We've been every week, putting out a little film with an exercise for people to do, and I can describe some of them in a minute if you like. And they're very practical ways of, if you're not able to get into the street, or you don't have a garden, to sort of free your mind, free your spirit, and ground yourself and reboot yourself in some ways. And they've been really popular. And in a weird way, attracted people to street wisdom who in the past weren't that interested. So some quite big companies have come and said, oh, actually what you're talking about is super helpful for us, because a lot of our people are getting quite stressed being at home. They're not used to being at home as much as they are. And so they're using some of the techniques as kind of ways of refreshing, rebooting, re-energizing yourself through the day.
So tell us about how to do it. So let's just say that we're going to start doing it now. You don't have to take and do the exercise, but give us some instructions about how we do this in our own homes.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the simple, the shape of street wisdom, the workshop, still holds true. So there's a phase at the beginning which is always sensible, which is to tune up your senses. You know, very often when we're out the street, we're screening ourselves from the noise and the traffic and so on. So we think of the outside world as something to be filtered out, but actually what we do with street wisdom is tune into it, because we say there's inspiration, there's stimulus there. The same in your house. Very often you've tuned out what's going on because it's familiar. So there are lots of exercises, and there are films about they're super easy. They take a few minutes, but they're about looking afresh, feeling afresh, sensing afresh where you are right now, being appreciative of that. And anyone who's done meditation will be familiar with it, although some people are surprised that it's really about, it's not about, as I say, about finding sort of inner calm and banishing the outside world. It's rather expanding yourself to be with the outside world in a way that makes you, that energizes you.
It's about
And then
noticing, isn't it? Noticing.
Yeah, I
To
mean,
notice and
absolutely.
really
And
look. Yeah.
I mean, if you had 1 minute on Earth and you had to spend it in the room you're in now, I'm guessing you'd suck in the details. You'd notice, without judgment, probably things that are the objects, the piles of washing in the corner. I've got some of them. The crack in the ceiling, and we often don't notice those things because we've a little bit got into the routine. So very much it's about noticing, savoring, appreciating. And what that does is it wakes up your embodied intelligence. Remember, we all know this, but we have to be reminded that it isn't just this bit that thinks. Yeah, we are cognition is embodied in our hands, feet. The whole of our body remembers and learns. So you need to get up and move around effectively.
Okay, so we've tuned up and we've started to sort of focus in and start, instead of just being blasé about our surroundings, it's like really notice what's going on. And then what?
Well, if you want to then make it useful, which is what street wisdom's about, you need some sort of intentionality. Otherwise, it's a bit like bliss and, ashram. Nothing wrong with that, but it's like, now what are we going to do with it? So what we do is say, ask a question. It's an old tradition. You go to the oracle, you ask a question, or you ask the shaman. Well, be your own shaman, be your own oracle. So you ask a question, and then with your senses awake, you wander around your room, or you wander around your house or whatever. And to wander, there are lots of techniques to wander. It sounds like you shouldn't need techniques, but we're not used to it, right? We're very purposeful. So a great way to do that is we say, let your feet be more intelligent than your head. Let your feet take your brain for a walk. So if you were just to tune in and then ask a question, and it could be any question. It could be professional, personal, big, small.
So give me some examples of the questions that people ask.
At the moment, there's lots of, how do I keep myself healthy? How will I emerge from this emergency? Should I go back to the job? How do I preserve what I love about this lockdown and let go of what I don't like about the lockdown?
Yeah.
Change. Very often you can think about it, Susie, and you know this, as a lot of people, it's a metaphor, but people think about their lives as a journey. And so what street wisdom is doing is helping you sort of make more conscious choices of which way you're going to turn. And it could be quite small. It could be about your nutrition, or it could be about your relationship, or it could be about your career, or whatever it is. And what happens is, because you're asking a question, you're putting some intention into the system. You'll find that the environment starts to, as it were, speak back to you. And it speaks back in many different ways, but you might notice a word or a color or a shape or a sequence of pictures, and there's a lot about that in Wanderful. How we used to do this all the time. Human beings would be reading the landscape symbolically, not just literally, and a flight of geese would mean something, and the way the sun slanted meant something. So it's really partly reminding ourselves of something that we're actually, as a race, very, very, very well designed to do. and you start getting answers. Do you get the answer? Sometimes, but always people say they get fresh inputs. So we like to say get fresh answers to the questions on your mind, so that you come back, even from quite a short little wander, you come back, people come back, the vast majority of people come back with new insights, with new perspective on the decisions, the choices they're making. Sometimes with a sense of confirmation. I asked. My question was about what should I be doing, and I was told do what you're doing now. So there's an element of confirmation of that. And there's a whole range of people that do street wisdom, from very pragmatic and left-brained, I would say, to the very open and caftan wearing, and they're all welcome. And some people see it as a kind of quite mystical experience. Others are quite see it as a sort of as a pragmatic aid to problem solving, as a creative. You treat the world around you as a kind of creative partner to give you stimulus. It's all good, right? But essentially, what we're doing is turning the world around you into a cooperative force that can help you make more interesting decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What I love about it is that it's kind of a benign force, isn't it? It's a benign force that is actually there for you to support you, versus which I think is a really helpful thing to think about in terms of your home and your environment right now, is that it's not something that's trapping you, imprisoning you, that there's a threat. It's trying to tell you something, and we're opening up into a conversation with our environments, as you say, co-creating with them. So I think that's a really interesting.
You said it better than me. You should be a journalist. You should do something with words.
Well, actually, I've told you this before, but you changed my life. I mean, the reason I'm on this boat is because I went on a street wisdom walk, and one of the questions I was asked by my son was going to a college in London. How are we going to do that? And I couldn't afford to move back to London because it's so expensive now. And I got the answer, walking along the canal, why don't you move on to a canal boat? So, when you hear the answer and it's like that little seed is planted, and then when you listen to it and give it attention and it grows, it can literally transform your whole way of life and your whole way of living. So I'm a great fan of this. So let's just see where we've gone on this experience, and we've walked around and we've, picked something up, or we've got an answer. Look, I've just seen that. This is actually I can. Which is, yes, okay, really good message. So in terms of, you get a message back, then what do you do? I mean, you're talking about a virtual street corner. So tell us what happens in street wisdom, but how do we do it in our own homes now? Because I think you've got a virtual.
Yeah. So what the third phase of street wisdom, thanks Susie, is people, the groups who do it on the street, usually strangers who've met just that day and done street wisdom, will meet in a cafe and have what we call a sharing. Because we can't do that at the moment, we've created an online version, which is every Tuesday at 4:00 we have a street corner, and people drop in from all over the world and they talk about the experiences they've had. Very often they've tried the exercise that we put up that week. And there's something interesting about sharing what has happened on your street wisdom, because it kind of, a lot of times you come back going, really, is that it? Or did I get it? When you talk to other people, it becomes clearer often. And also you can learn from other people's insights. So that sharing phase that we, as I say, we do online, is free. You're welcome to drop in. We'll stick the URL into the
It's down here already.
It's down there already. Okay,
yeah.
that's great. And it's synchronicity is one of the sub themes that runs through street wisdom, that's to say, we like to say, more happy accidents, or are they accidents? These kind of the right thing happening at the right time. The more you practice that, the more it seems to happen, and that includes who you meet. So when people turn up on the street corner, it's really interesting who shows up. They seem to be the right crew show up every time for the right subject. So it's fun to trust that. And as you say, Susie, that sense of this, it's like the world around you is not against you. It's sort of working with you.
Yeah, it's and giving you the answers that you need to move on. I mean, I think the thing is then acting on it, isn't it? It's you might hear the answer loud and clear, but then it's okay. how do you act on it? So what examples have you got of people acting on the wisdom? What was the most dramatic? I mean, for me, it was a canal boat. So
Yeah.
what can you think of the kind of best examples of people who've made really big leaps by
Yeah.
listening to that inner wisdom?
I mean, just two that come to mind immediately are, I saw these on Instagram recently. I mean, you really know it's working when people who are 2 or 3 or 4 degrees of separation from you are talking about an experience, because you know you've had nothing to do with it. And there are people who've set up businesses based on their street wisdom experience, and that's to say they had a hunch, and street wisdom really confirmed it for them. There's a guy, forgive me, I can't remember his name, but he's set up he loves printing. He'd love to be a graphic designer, and he's got his print works now. He's printing beautiful things. Another person came up with a brilliant idea. I mentioned this in the TED talk, but a brilliant idea for a medicinal beer. And again, it was very often these answers are sort of on the tip of your tongue, and there's something about the street wisdom experience that brings it to life. We've had people who've sort of come out of depression. I'm not promising that happens at all, but this person did. Had somebody who, we've had a proposal and we've had a divorce, not the same person
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah.
So there can be some pretty, the prison, but a lot of the time, what people get is strong confirmation of a hunch that they've got.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that in itself can be, you don't have to ask a mate or go to a psychiatrist or a politician or a lawyer. You ask the world around you, and you get that. It tells you, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my lovely ones is I got kind of a message from. So I asked, my lovely dog died recently, and I was so upset. And we were walking around the station, and I was like, I just want to know that he's okay. And then there was literally a massive poster of Victoria Station with a dog with wings. And it was like, no, it was such a lovely thing that happened. So even, I think sometimes it can help with grief as well, when you're grieving something, find the universe to comfort you.
And I think, again, we're tapping into something that's very ancient in us, that ability to see beyond what is obvious. And there's a good, lively conversation we could have about whether that's coming from you or from outside you, or a combination of the two, and who you are. And that's for more philosophical times. But for me, what's interesting is that we wanted to do something so simple that it would work across the board and across the world. And it took a while to get something, I think, and we're always learning, but to get something that's really, really simple and doesn't require sort of obscure professional training. Of course, it's good. A lot of people are coaches. If you've got coaching experience or you've human development experience, that helps, but that's not necessary. So it's wonderful to see people who just taking this technology and using it powerfully for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, David, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today. So we've got all the links below, so you can join in Street Wisdom Home, once we can you could even do it on the street, probably socially distancing, but I wouldn't like to encourage it, because I'm not quite sure that's allowed.
Yeah, no, well, it depends on the regime. If you do go on the street, the Wandercast, you can download a free Wandercast, which is just essentially a guide. I take you through a street wisdom. And you put it on your phone. And the thing about that is you can go at your own speed. So even if you've got 15 minutes outside, you could do that.
Yeah.
And I tell you, Vanessa will kick me if I don't mention, though, that it's free around the world, and that's our mission. But we do that. We can do that because we get donations and we work with businesses, and we also, the books are, all the revenue goes to Street Wisdom. So if you're interested, you're super welcome. If you fancy also helping us financially, that would be great, especially at a time like this. We really want to keep the mission going.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, all the links are below. Thank you so much for your time today. Lovely to see your beaming face again. And I'm going to go on my walk with the wonderful book under my arm and my earbuds in my ears, and to hear your voice and take me around the streets of London from my canal boat. I blame you. I blame you. All right. Thank you very much, David. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for having us. Bye. Bye.
Okay.